What's up? It's your boy Carcino here, and I was just watching the Magic Moment, the 30 for 30 on ESPN, and they spoke on the Shaquille O'Neal, Penny Hardaway situation, the whole what could have been for Orlando Magic, and what happened. So let me take you through some of the things that was left out in the ESPN special because they Walt Disney what was really going on in the stories and stuff. So I'll try to fill in the gaps so you can find out what's going on. But this was nice at the end, though. I'm gonna let you hear it.
I think about it all the time, but I know for a fact if we would have won, it definitely wouldn't have been no breakup.
Yeah,
Definitely wouldn't have been
sure.
no breakup. I kind of owe you an apology. And instead of coming to you like a man and saying, hey, I heard this, I heard that, I was like, you know what, forget it. If it's his team, you want it, take it, move on. And those are things that you go through when you're younger. And I wish I had, because remember, we were young.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So I kind of owe you an apology.
No, it's all good, big dog. I understand.
Shaq and Penny is an unfinished book.
No doubt about it.
Let's go back and elaborate on some of the situations that you heard on the show. Shaquille O'Neal, one of the dominant big men to come into the league at that time, but he was more than that. Shaquille O'Neal was a marketing tool and a force to be reckoned with. And back then, the game was played different. It was played big man to little man. So you think you get a big center and you build a team around the center. That's how the league was going, and to build up these markets like they wanted to do in Florida, because that's what Florida had all this generated revenue from NFL to college football. And now people are like, man, the NBA wants to tap into that market just a little bit. This is a major move for them. So with the Miami Heat and Orlando Magic coming into play, now you got to build them up. You need the big men to do it. So you got Alonzo Mourning to go to Miami. You got Shaquille O'Neal to go to Orlando. None of this was by accident. If anybody thinks the draft and all this, the NBA dictates who's going to go pretty much where and who's going to pick what in the draft. To get Penny Hardaway, they had like one ball. And the magical one ball out of all the other people who have a shot land on this opportunity of the number one pick in the draft. And they drafted Chris Webber. We all saw that on the show. Now, with Chris Webber gets traded to Golden State. And once he got traded to Golden State, it became a headache because now they freed up the cap room. They got Penny. Golden State had a quick run over there going at it with and battling on the court with the Phoenix Suns, with Barkley and all those guys. But they were never going to make it because they didn't like Don Nelson, the coach. That wasn't going to work for them. But Penny Hardaway, who's really quiet, don't really say too much, he's a baller. Penny's a player. And he came in the league doing exactly what he did in college, doing exactly what he did in Blue Chips, doing exactly what you've seen Penny Hardaway do. And I saw him in college and said, this is the best player I've ever seen in college. And I remember telling my cousin, I said, you want to know who the best player in college is? Yeah, that's him right there. Penny Hardaway. And his name came by accident. They started calling him 1 Cent. But his auntie used to call him Pretty. But the way because she was old in age and the way she used to say it, it sounded like she said Penny. So the name, everybody in the neighborhood started calling him Penny because they thought that's what she was saying, but she used to call him Pretty. But Penny stuck. And then it's 1 cent. Everybody know 1 cent. You know, where he from. But going into the details of him and Shaq, it became, Shaq was the biggest thing in the league. And it kind of breaks down as the Shaq and Kobe story. Except for in this situation, they were a growing team going into a situation where they had went to the NBA Finals. I mean, this team went to the NBA Finals before anything would erupt as far as attention. Because when you're winning games, there's no problems. The following year, after losing and getting swept by 4 to the Houston Rockets, Shaq, who was the face of the team, it started to change a little bit. And Shaq's agent wanted Shaquille O'Neal really to be in LA, which was true, because he had a lot of pull in Los Angeles. He was an agent in Hollywood, and Shaq getting a record deal. But these guys were young. They said, they're in their 20s now. Now that they older and they look back, they like, I should have never, ever left this place. If I knew now what I knew then, I wouldn't have never left. And it's hard to, in hindsight, Orlando should have won those championships. It would have made much more of a difference had Orlando won instead of adding on to the Lakers dynasty. I felt Shaquille O'Neal missed a big opportunity there. But the first real issue they had was during the finals. Do one of the practices, Penny Hardaway didn't say nothing because he didn't really deal with too many players on the team really off the court. He normally dealt with his homies. And he was like, come on, man, let's get some hustle. He went and told Shaq. And Shaq was shocked because Penny don't normally get vocal. And he was like, Penny getting vocal with me? He was like, come on, man. Come on, big guy. Man, we need you. We need you. So Shaq really didn't get mad, but Shaq's like, I'm doing good right now, but he's lacking on defense. He's scoring a lot, but on defense, they taking advantage of you. And so he's asking, Penny don't have a commanding voice. So when he talks, it falls on deaf ears. So he's trying to lean to Nick Anderson and tell Nick, like, come on, man, we got to start doing this. Him and B. Shaw were pretty close on the team. Penny and B. Shaw was, real tight. And then the next season, Shaq didn't come in shape. And Penny did. Shaq kind of filmed, some movies. He had a record he was putting out. And it was a whole different transition of what was happening with Shaq as far as what he was doing there and what he was doing back, in between the season. He was playing in a basketball game against Hakeem Olajuwon, a one-on-one game, and Penny Hardaway's like, what are you doing, man? You practicing for a one-on-one game for Taco Bell's from the sponsor? It's like, this is the stupidest thing ever. We got to come back to try to beat these guys next year. We don't need to be playing them in one-on-one games. So Penny's like, are we really doing this? And they was like, the NBA is like, oh, this is marketing. This is great. We're going to have a great rivalry of Shaq versus Olajuwon. So Penny wasn't okay with that. The game nobody was buying the pay-per-view, the money they was asking for. So the game got canceled. And it got canceled while they was lacing up their shoes, getting ready to play. And then they just like, man, we canceling this thing because nobody was ordering that on pay-per-view. So it got canceled. And Penny was like, man, this is a waste of time because after that, Shaq didn't even train no more. He was just like, all right, well, season's over. So when the season and the camp starts, Shaq is overweight. He's trying to play, but he's really not in basketball shape. He can't really run that much. So Penny came back in tip-top shape. B. Shaw in shape. Nick Anderson in shape. D. Scott kind of wasn't in shape. But he had to play his way back. But Penny was like a man possessed. When the season started, from the very first game, Penny was dominating, taking over. I mean, he was in the zone. Then Shaq was out. Shaq got hurt and was going to miss a couple of games. And while he was out, it became the Penny show. D. Scott, they moving up the ball faster. They winning games. People thought they were going to lose because Shaq was out and we're going to lose, maybe go 500. They went like 20 and 20 something and 7 when they started. Shaq was gone for a little bit, but then it started to give the Orlando Magic ideas like, maybe we can have life after Shaquille O'Neal. Maybe we can coexist. And, you know, but the team was divided when Shaq came back. Because now some of the people started to trust and believe in Penny as the leader of the team. So now if Penny says something, they listen. He ain't got to be super vocal no more. It's not just Shaq saying it and we all just going to follow suit from the big man. Now Penny's voice has got some power to it. So now D. Scott, who's Shaq's man on the team, you know, Shaq got his own people that roll with him. And then you got people like Nick Anderson and B. Shaw. And most of those guys, they roll with Penny pretty much. And then all of a sudden, D. Scott and, you know, D. Scott and Penny really didn't. They were cool, but that wasn't his guy. Shaq was his guy, and he rolled with Shaq. They partied with Shaq. That was his right-hand man. So D. Scott and Shaq was all, no matter what Shaq said, D. Scott was already going to roll with it. And the whole thing was, once they made the adjustment in the offseason and got Horace Grant, they was rolling because now they had a power forward who could rebound and run the floor. And he filled in good when, you know, Shaq came back and everything's rolling because they already had Horace for the finals and lost. But now you running the floor without Shaq, and Horace is the big key as to why they was 1-2 along with Penny. But now Nike's using this momentum to push out the Penny shoe, the Air Pennies, and here come the commercials, just like you saw there on the show with the Chris Rock. Is there room for a brother on your planet? Tyra Banks, fool. Now, here's the thing. Tyra Banks was trying to get in, you know, in the NBA, you know, and date players. She's a model. She does what a model does. And models sleep with athletes and actors and entertainers. That's what they do. They don't make a lot of money modeling. Some don't. Tyra was able to play her position. She used to date John Singleton to start her acting career. You know, so, you know, she knows the game. So she wanted to get with the hottest player in the game, was Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq was like, yeah, he's trying to get up with Tyra Banks. That didn't work out because all of a sudden, Shaq was not the man no more. And he liked Tyra Banks. But Tyra was more into Penny. So now you see a situation where Penny and Tyra Banks was, you know, kind of close. What was going on there, you wasn't going to hear it from Penny. But, you know, Shaq kind of took some immaturity and offense to her because he was a bigger player. And was like, I'm a bigger player than Penny. It's my team. Why she not with me? So Shaq threw a party, and he had Penny there. But it was Shaq's party. You know, it was like Shaq's like hangout at the party, and it was in Miami after they played the Miami Heat. And Shaq's there. He got they had beat the Miami Heat. They got Horace Grant and a couple of other people that showed up for a little bit. But the main three was Dennis Scott, Nick Anderson didn't show, but Penny showed up. It was Penny, Shaq, and Tyra Banks was there. And at the event, Shaq's leaning all over Tyra Banks and trying to get her on the NBA Today or whatever that show was they had. And he's trying to, be on Tyra and everything with Tyra Banks. So Tyra Banks is like, okay, but it's Penny's the guy right now. He's hot. And Shaq was kind of, like, well, Shaq is Shaq. He's been in the league, but it's kind of phased out. So now he ain't the guy breaking the rims no more. He's just Shaquille O'Neal. We know what Shaq gonna do. He gonna dunk the basketball. But Penny is the total package. But he just don't talk. So now he got little Penny doing all the talking for him. And everybody's talking about Penny Hardaway. So, at the party, Penny kind of like faded and went to a whole nother, like it was cool, Matt. He very low key. He introvert. So he don't like big crowds and all that. He's really low key. And Shaq is all the way turned up when he goes out. He likes to party. So the whole nature of the whole beef, which was just word of mouth. People coming back talking about, man, Penny don't like the way you don't work it out, and this they think it's Penny's team now, and they said Penny saying you ain't working hard enough. It was all this stuff from teammates on the team and the media and the press splitting them up, twisting words Penny might have said, and Shaq like, all right, well, if that's the way they feel, it's done. And what happened was, after the commercial, Shaq was just having fun with the little Penny one. Like they said, when he knocked little Penny down, in his Reebok commercial, you got Nike and then you got Reebok. And Reebok's like, we got to come back with the Shaq shoe and we got to sell it because the new Shaq shoe wasn't really selling. So they wanted to jump out and do a cross promotion where they knock out Lil Penny and all this. So they had a fake Lil Penny thing. And Shaq, it was his concept idea. He thought it'd be funny. Penny took it as offensive and was like, man, this guy don't want to share the spotlight. And then there was words Shaq saying Penny's a ball hog. But that wasn't far from the truth. Penny loved giving the ball to Shaq. If Shaq was open, Penny's going to give you the ball in the best possible way. But the fans and the crowd and the media started to turn. And it was, go Penny, shoot it, Penny. It became, you see more Penny Hardaway signs up. More Penny this, Penny that. And it got to Shaq. His ego was, they young. They in their 20s, early 20s. And the Tyra Banks thing blows over. But, ego in the way. Now you got a situation where you got to keep Shaq and you got to keep the Orlando Magic happy. So what you saw on the episode about the contracts was true. They actually they didn't have enough room to pay to keep Shaq. Shaq, now that was the best deal. $80 million for 4 years was actually the better deal for Shaq, because after the 4 years, he could have came back and renegotiated. And then they could have they had enough money to keep Penny and Shaq. So it wasn't that they was lowballing him. That's actually the smarter deal to take instead of the long-term deal, 7 years for $121 million. That's why Shaq was like, if I knew what I knew then, what I know now, I would have never left, because that was the smarter deal. As you see LeBron James take these 3-year contracts and he can come back and renegotiate and just do 1-year deals. He's not locked in to a long-term contract, but he's making the maximum amount of money he can. But they got enough cap to make a bigger team of talent. You're not handicapping the team to just pay you, and then you stuck with that team, and then they control what they want to do with you. It's a risk when you talk health, because for those 3 years, If you get hurt for, like, say you out for the season, it lowers your stock value. But if you Shaquille O'Neal, you've been in the league this long, in 4 years, you got $80 million for 4, you could renegotiate after those 4 years. And then where would your stock be? Orlando Magic would have been a dynasty. They just needed the experience, and they needed a stronger bench. They would have kept Shaq. They would have had a benchmark to do so. But he felt they were trying to protect Anthony Hardaway and didn't want to lose him and cared more about Anthony than him. And his agent didn't care. His agent was already working with Jerry West behind his back and everything because the Lakers wanted Shaq. And he wants to know what Orlando offering, what they trying to offer him. Well, they need 6 figures. Oh, well, we'll do 7 figures, high 7 or 8 figures. Okay, high 8. We got them, high 8 figures. So the Lakers is working and structuring how to get Shaquille O'Neal because they want to get him in Hollywood. The agent's down there, his wife's down there. They live in Hollywood. You know, this is where all the actors are, the big time promotion for Shaq. He had the Twism, The World Is Still Mine, you know, all of that stuff he had, it was all ego. And it dissolved the bigger picture. Because when he went to the Lakers, they really didn't have any pieces left. It took many years. It took 4 years in LA for them to become a contender so that they can win an NBA championship. And Penny and Shaq really didn't, like, Penny's career was like over before they really came to terms to have a conversation about some of the things that happened back in Orlando, where he realized Penny really didn't have any ego towards him or no animosity towards Shaq. But he felt like, man, like, big guy got a problem with me, you know? And so naturally, Penny didn't know how to diffuse those situations because he's not a vocal leader. You know, he's more of a I'm a lead by example type player. But once now that they all retired, they're older and they're more mature because they've experienced life, they both can sit down and look back on the past at what was and like, man, we were just young and we just messed it all up. We didn't realize what we had and how fortunate they was in their 20s. So for the young players out there, let this be an example. Because this was the first dynasty backcourt they had of the new young generation. You know, all the other players were older and there hadn't been a Penny Hardaway, a guard that was 6'7", that athletic. He was way more athletic than Magic Johnson, who can move like Penny, pass like Penny, dunk like Penny, had the speed. There was no player like that. He could play like 3 to 4 positions on the court. And you had the best big man coming out of college because the league is dying of centers. He was like the only center left. Everybody was getting ready to get out of the league. So Shaq would have been the only center in the league, which in the Lakers, he was basically it. And you saw the only person they had was like Sabonis, or until they got Yao Ming to try to defend him. He was the last of the Mohicans. So I'm just sad that the dynasty died the way it did, because I think Penny and Shaq would have won some NBA championships. They lost it because of immaturity. They didn't know how to close out games. They didn't have the experience to win on the road. And people don't understand that it takes years to develop the right type of mental mind state to learn how to win a championship. And to see this type of combination kind of reminds you of OKC. They were very young. They scored a lot of points. They could run and gun. They could play. But, you know, it's like they're missing something. And it was like the experience. And when they made it to the NBA Finals, they was just like, wow, we here. They was in and out of it so quick. You know, it was like, wow, they here, now they gone. And it's over that quick. And they just fighting and clawing and scratching to get back. And the media and everybody else is trying to separate, you know, Westbrook from Durant. Until eventually they're going to become frustrated from being eliminated from the playoffs, because people don't know that stuff stings. It stings like a blow. And they're going to leave. And then the Lakers going to come with money. Clippers going to come with money. LA, that's the big scene. That's the highlights. That's the commercials. That's the live parties with the celebrities and movie stars. And every agent going to want to take you there. So, sorry, I've been talking too much. I'm out.